Hello and welcome to our third Friday Hurdlehoppers teaching, where we take a look at obstacles to spiritual growth. This is the October teaching where we're going to take a brief, I hope, powerful look at comparison and envy, which are truly joy stealers. There are this calendar and all the notes pages you can get by going to heartcleanse.org/Friday Hurdlehoppers. And let's take a look at October's subject, comparison and envy. This is a topic that I did not have in the HEARTCleanse curriculum the first several years that I taught it, but I had some women ask me if I would address it. And so I did a deep dive study on it and it got added to the curriculum. We're just going to do a kind of a flyby today. And usually in this series, I talk about possible root causes, potential action steps, and ways to get accountability. I feel like for this one, I want to go at it a little differently. So your notes pages will not reflect what you see in front of you, but I think you can take notes on it anyway. So we'll take a look at definitions, possible root causes, possible remedies. Let's get started. Envy, a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, quality, or luck. The verb to envy is to desire to have a quality, possession, or other desirable attribute belonging to someone else. And the Bible has a lot to say about this. A sound heart is life to the body, but envy is rottenness to the bones. So envy can permeate your entire self. James says, for where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. So we talk about having open doors to the enemy. Christians need to work hard at keeping our hearts clean. We don't want to have little areas in our hearts where the devil can come in and set up shop and cause all sorts of confusion and malicious destruction. And envy is one of those open doors. So it's a luxury that we don't have to allow a little bit of envy in our heart. Envy is so indicative of a bigger issue. And so the Bible is very clear that it causes rot, it causes evil things, it causes confusion. So let's take a look at it. It's very much connected to comparison. Comparison is a consideration or estimate of the similarities or dissimilarities between two things or people. Obviously, you can compare oranges and tangerines. You can get your Venn diagram as you compare one sort of tree with another sort of tree. We are talking about the unhealthy act of comparing yourself towards another, towards an ideal, your material wealth compared to someone else's. So we're looking at comparison not in the objective sense, but in the negative light of comparing two things and coming short. So the Bible has much to say about comparison. We see character studies. Abel and Cain had a struggle where Cain killed Abel because Abel's offering he perceived was pleasing to God, whereas his own wasn't. In Exodus, there is a lifelong struggle of comparison and envy between Leah and Rachel. Leah was able to give birth, but could not ever get over the fact that her husband loved Rachel more. Rachel was well loved by her husband, probably preferred, but wasn't able to bear children. So she envied Leah's fertility, and Leah envied Rachel's affection and love and preference of their shared husband. So both women died bitter deaths. Their lives were consumed by comparing with the other person, not in rejoicing at the good gift that God had given each of them, but pining and longing for the good gift that was not given to each of them, but which was given to the rival. Luke 2:24. Now there was also a dispute among them as to which of them should be considered the greatest. So we see this going on even with the disciples who are living in the presence of Jesus, walking with him, learning from him, following him, being used by him, and yet this very human tendency to compare, to see how we measure up, was present even in the disciples. So uh, how do we combat this? Because I will tell you, and you have experienced it, I'm sure, that comparison is a thief of joy. Rottenness to the bones, envy. Comparison, the thief of joy. We can be comparing ourselves to how we think we should be doing. We can be comparing ourselves to others. It is a trap, and let's see what we can do about it. So what are the root causes? Well, I always start out with root causes, talking about the enemy. He came to steal and to kill and to destroy. Jesus came that we may have life in the full. So there's going to be a struggle of the evil one trying to convince you that God is not good, that God does not provide well for you, and that other members of the flock are your enemies. So he wants to create distance between you and God. And he does this by making you feel like a pouty child who doesn't have enough, who hasn't been given all she needs or all that she deserves. And he wants to keep you isolated from other Christians and to feel all alone in your world, self-pity. This is where he can attack your mind, when he has you isolated. And there's no better way to disconnect you from other people but for you to be caught in the trap of comparing yourself with them. Either they're better than you, or they're less than you, or they have more than you, or you have more than them. These are all things that cause division between people, causes a frowny face. So, what are some of the causes above and beyond the devil, or how does the devil use these certain strategies to cause you to envy and compare? Well, there's definitely living on the fallen planet, we can experience wounds of the heart. We can actually have a well-meaning or not so well-meaning authority figure or a person of great impact in our life compare us with someone else at a critical moment, when we're vulnerable, when we don't yet understand the depth of love of God. If the right person at the wrong time says the hard thing to us, that flaming arrow can enter into our heart, and we will be limping and comparing and anxious about whether we measure up. So there are childhood wounds, there are adulthood wounds. I bet if we were meeting together, we could all share a certain moment in time where the devil delivered a message that stuck, that we were less than, didn't make the grade, less loved, less talented. So those wounds of the heart, often by the time we reach adulthood, are buried, maybe not even remembered, but they will bear bad fruit if they aren't attended to. Other wounds of the heart can just happen when we do our heart healing chapter in HEARTCleanse. We talk about comparison wounds that can occur in the most God-fearing families. You might have a very functional family with a bunch of high achievers, where everyone's growing up healthy, strong, and making their impact on the world. If you are one of those siblings that it's a little bit harder for, or maybe it's not harder for you, but the giants in your family make you feel that you are less than, even though it's never been stated to you. I worked with a young lady who came from such a beautiful Christian, mutually supportive, mutually just spirit-filled, community impacting, church pillar kind of a family. And one of the children there just felt like she could not be the superstar that all of her siblings were turning out to be, and none of them held her to that. So that's just that would be someone on the Chicago Bulls who happens to be on the Chicago Bulls at the time of Michael Jordan's reign there, where you're just by nature of no malicious intent, you grow up in the shadow of someone else. You can have this in siblings where one is more academically gifted, the other's more athletically gifted. There's comparison there, even though the parents never, ever, ever do that. So remember that the devil is behind anything that destroys your joy, destroys your testimony, and causes you to think wrong things about God. So he's in it. He can cause the original wound, and then as it goes on, unhealed, uncared for, it causes more bad fruit as you go along. Another root cause is a theological issue. God is either in love with you or he's not. He's either good or he's not. If you are gnawing on a bone about you being ill-equipped, or I don't know, you look the wrong way, your brain doesn't work the way it should, you don't have the athletic prowess that you think you need, you don't have the body shape that you aspire to have. All of these at root are questioning God's sovereignty, God's wisdom, God's love and care for you. It is planting in your mind, or your attitude speaks forth to a belief that God favors other children, that he made a mistake with you, that he blesses other people more than he blesses you. So at root, who God is going to be part of the cure of my discontent, really getting to know God's heart and God's inability to err. I am not saying that there are not at times consequences to our own choices. I'm not entitled to as good an income and as fancy a car as my neighbor. Part of that might be my fault. I got myself into debt, or I was lazy in school and can't get the job. Some of that is due to my own choices. Some of that is just due to the sovereignty of God assigning a lot to each one of us. There are heart issues. I think we know that we're all born into sin. We all have a sin nature, and my way of exhibiting the sin nature may be different than yours. But I do think some people are prone to envy and comparison. Stems, yes, from a wrong theology of your immeasurable worth in the eyes of God. It stems from a wrong theology of how much God loves you and how much care he put into designing you to be exactly the way you are. But in addition to the theological error in our head, some people are just more inclined to this sort of distorted thinking. Envy. So envy and comparison are not my bugaboos, but as I told you, they seem to be quite prevalent even in Christian women. I homeschooled my children, and there was a term that made sense to me in that community: homier than thou. We know about in the Christian community people trying to out holy each other. Well, in the homeschool community, there was just this subtle edge of being homier than thou, not holier than thou, in that I not only make my own granola, I also make my own kombucha, and I sew all my children's clothing, where someone else does all three of those and does not wear makeup, and another one does all four of those, and in addition has a herd of sheep in the backyard, so etc. So it can creep into the I say that tongue in cheek. I did have a hard time being a suburban latchkey kid coming from a feminist family without a father. I found it hard to compete in those circles. And my situation, I wanted very much to acquire their ways. I had so much respect for the people. They taught me so much about homemaking and child raising. I was a hungry learner, but I did struggle with, I just don't think I'm ever gonna be that kind of a person. And I'm not. And I don't mean to stereotype them, but I'm illustrating how the joy stealing strategy of comparison can even occur in the best of Christian circles. Those are women that I have such high regard and admiration for. No one ever tried to belittle me. I was only welcomed, and anything I wanted to learn, they gladly would share. But I could feel my differentness when I was around them. I felt like an outsider trying hard to fit in, because I really did want to fit in. That was just a part of my journey. So but in general, it's not something that I struggle with, but I have seen and experienced and heard that it is quite prevalent. For me, sorry, I have a terrible cold right now. I'm trying to get this done, so pardon me. So heart issues of where there's just a bent towards comparison, whether or not there was a wound, whether or not we love Jesus, it might just be your struggle. I have other struggles that you might not have. And so if you do feel that envy and comparison come easily to you, that's where you slide when you're not at the top of your spiritual game. I would just confess that before the Lord every morning and say, Lord, save me from it, because it's probably a bent in your personality that only God can save you from. So, social media is created to make you compare with others. I am mostly grateful that that I can't understand it. It's like I'm too old to really understand it, so I can't really get into it. But also, I've worked with, ministered to young people quite a bit, and it just wrecks their contentedness. It wrecks their self-acceptance. It causes competition between them. I worked with young adult women. They were constantly wrestling the beast. I'm going off of social media for a month. Okay, I'm going back on, but I'm going to limit it to, only 1 hour a day, etc. This wrestling with the beast that they knew stole their joy. So we all know that there's photoshopping and even worse, even more insidious ways to make you appear superhuman, flawless, and problem-free. And that can really do a number on your heart if you are not super strong and rooted in who God is, who you are, and you keep your heart clean. So, remedies. What do we do about this? It's not enough to just know that these are strategies of the devil. So, wounds of the heart. I would love for you to be in my workshop. And HEARTCleanse, we spend many weeks getting to the point where we are ready for surgery. And then we allow the Lord in to revisit possibly where the original wounding took place. I lay the groundwork of understanding the the anatomy of a wounding and how wounds lead to lies, lead to vows, lead to barricades in the heart. I'd say good Christian counseling, lots and lots of scripture, but it does take some rummaging around to see where the original wounding started. So that's too much for one video, but give me a jingle if you're interested. So we spend about 3 weeks on it in HEARTCleanse and Deep Cleanse, which is the second semester of HEARTCleanse. Because if I were to start off the bat on woundings of the heart, there's so much theology that needs to be straight, that we need to be really comfy, cozy, intimate with the Lord before we allow him to touch our wounds. And that's why I prepare the soil for many, many weeks before we get to the wounds. But then once we get there, everybody's ready to let Jesus in to do the healing that ultimately only he can do. But you do have to do some unmasking of what really happened. Theological issues comes from you being at a Bible believing church where you learn the true nature of God. I am so sorry about this. I'm going out of town early in the morning, so I have to do this now. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I'm grossing you out. So the theological issues, Fourth Fridays on YouTube, HEARTCleanse 28 is my channel. Every single month I do a mini study on one of the attributes of God. I would suggest you do that. I would also suggest a study of Ephesians 1, 2, and 3. In my Foundations series, which is the second Friday Foundations on YouTube, you will find a study on the biblical worldview and how we are flawed and yet fearfully and wonderfully made. So just check out my YouTube. I teach all of this. I give because the Bible, the Word of God, the truth of God, the truth is God's opinion on anything, and the truth is found in the Bible. And so you can renounce comparison and envy because you feel guilty about it and it steals your joy. But if you don't change the way you think about God, and if you don't begin to see yourself as God sees you, you are going to continue to measure yourself against unworthy plumb lines. So it really is a renewing of the mind that will set you free. Heart issues, I alluded to this already. Go before the Lord and say, Lord, I confess I have an envy problem. I want very much what that person has, but you're not giving it to me. Lord, help me to replace my envy with joy for them. The ideal is that we look around and we are so excited at how generous our daddy is to all of his children. I see your spiritual gift and I think, wow, that's an awesome gift he gave you. I see my little spiritual gift and I say, wow, God knew that was just the right size for me. I see your house, your toys, your spouse, your children, your lifestyle, your vacations, and I say, wow, all of that came from my daddy. Isn't my daddy generous? And I look at my own things the same way, and I trust that God has withheld certain things from me in love and wisdom, but he has also withheld things from you in love and wisdom. We only see the goodies and someone else's Easter basket. We don't see the chiseling and the trials and the tribulations, but everybody gets a perfect mix of both, because God designed sanctification plans that are very unique to each individual, and they make sense to him, even if they don't make sense to us. So having a good, solid trust in who God is and constantly going before him and asking him to relieve you from comparison, envy, jealousy, and replace all of that with self-acceptance and true joy for others at God's generosity towards them. It's very free. What can I say about this but limit it, eliminate it, erase it. Don't play the game if you are in any way enslaved to it now, or weak in your faith, or insecure. I have heard people say it is absolutely transformative to take a fast from social media. So, or to get rid of it altogether. So, plenty of books out there, plenty of data backing up what I say. It's created to make you feel less than and to want to compare with others and to want to buy stuff. So, it's quite poisonous to someone in their formative years, and you might be in your formative years if you are not rock solid in your theology. It doesn't matter your chronological age. A lot of people can be harmed by the comparison messages that come through social media. So remember that the devil he's got all the time in the world, and he prowls and he watches and he preys on you, and he wants you to be scattered from the flock. He wants you to be far from the shepherd, because when you are alone in that left-hand box, he can attack your mind. He can snuff out your faith. He can just let out all of the he can trying to think of the word, he can diffuse all the spiritual growth that God would like to do inside of you. You must remain connected to the vine, connected to Jesus, close to Jesus. And one of the ways to do that is to be very closely interrelated with the flock, with other Christians. And so the devil uses envy and comparison to do the opposite. He wants to tear you away. So don't get mad at yourself. Don't get mad at other people. Don't believe lies about God being far from you. Put all your anger towards the devil and decide to fight back. God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free, rejoicing in all the good gifts he's given us, trusting him for all the good gifts he has chosen to withhold from us, and being happy and joyous for other people who get a different assortment of goodies and trials, different than our own, but certainly a mix of both. So these are a couple workshops that I am running if you want to go a little deeper. This is if you're just not happy with your spiritual growth and you'd like to see more fruit in your life, just check it out. Workshops.heartcleanse.org/growthbusters. We'll talk about how to move from this fruitless, uncertain, not sure which direction I'm going way of doing life towards confidence and forward movement, because you're deeply rooted and fruit bearing. That is God's will for you. So we'll take a look at obstacles to spiritual growth, similar to this series, but we go a little deeper, of course, because we're working together and we're working on things on a daily basis. The other is the Right Track Roadmap, which is a bit more of an investment of time and energy. Go ahead and if you've never feel like you have ever been discipled, that you've never really had someone take you by the hand and make sure that you have all your duckies in a row. There are many, many lessons. There are 5 modules, and there are 3 to 4 recorded lessons in each one. There's PDF homeworks, there's prayer prompts, share prompts, life application prompts, and you also have access to me on a weekly basis. So spiritual growth is what you're after. When you are growing in the Lord and growing closer to the Lord, it will not even occur to you to be envious or jealous of other people, because it is so fulfilling to be growing more beautiful, more peaceful, more joy-filled every day. So go ahead and check out one of those, either the Growth Busters or the Right Track Roadmap. And then, of course, you can come every single Friday to YouTube. There's a load of mini teachings on YouTube right now. Every first Friday, there is an open prayer time where I lead you through one of 11 different types of prayers. You can get all those prayer templates right now at that highlighted area, and you can start using them today, or you can use them and get the teaching on YouTube Friday Foundations, also key teachings on the Christian faith that tend to get skewed over time. Lots of handouts, lots of teaching every second Friday. Hurdlehoppers is what you're watching right now. Fourth Friday Father Facts I have already mentioned to you, because who God is and what you mean to him are key to your level of peace. So all of these third Friday Hurdlehoppers, as well as first and second and fourth Friday Hurdlehoppers up until now, today is October. So they're all on YouTube, HEARTCleanse 28 at HEARTCleanse 28. So you can watch all of them, get caught up. These are a list of obstacles to spiritual growth that I obtained from my last group of HEARTCleanse students who said this is what they see in the community. This is why people just kind of go stagnant, which makes me crazy. So I just took down notes and created teachings for each of them. So I hope you'll come back next month. We'll talk about unresolved inner trauma. We touched on that a bit already. But until then, I just say keep pressing on, my friend. Follow me on Instagram and follow me on HEARTCleanse. And I hope to see you at the next one. Okay, take care.